Hello everyone, this is going to be my Star-Lord guide for season 5. I think this character is very good. I think he's very viable still. He's not quite as S tier as he was maybe in like previous seasons. There are other options like Psylocke, Hello No More, Daredevil, and probably even Iron Fist that are more viable than Star-Lord right now. But I still think he's pretty fun to play and he's still pretty decent in the right hands. And I think if you put some time into him, he can work in a lot of scenarios and get you a lot of value. And yeah, so a bit about me. I started playing this game around like season 1.5 and I was kind of hard stuck GM3 up until last season is when I finally like kind of broke through my season 4.5, and I got Celestial 3. And overall I have around 200 hours, most of those hours just being in ranked alone. You see I have a positive win rate. I think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this character. And last season Celestial 3 was about like 99.4% of players, so I'm not like super high rank, but I think I got high enough to be able to make this guide comfortably. All right, so jumping into the Ranger, we're just gonna start with his abilities, and it's gonna be a really quick run through because by now you guys are probably familiar with this kit. I'm just gonna go over everything that is necessary. So his primary is just his blaster gun. It shoots in a spread and it's hit scan, which means basically he's just like a tracking based hero. Ideally you want to be like super close when you're hitting somebody, but even as far as like around 20 meters you can still be shooting them and you're still getting good damage. Even though you are going to be missing some bullets, you'll still get decent damage. And you always want to be shooting on this character just to build your ultimate. That's going to be the main theme with Star-Lord is how do you use his ultimate. Going to be honest, he is an aim-based hero, so at the bare minimum, you are gonna have to be good at aiming, get good at tracking, and if you're not, that's fine. But it's just something you gotta know going forward. Like it's something you're really gonna have to like practice. You don't need to have like perfect aim, but you need to have good enough aim to be able to pressure any like squishy target, like whenever you're looking at them. Like you need to be a threat without your ultimate. Tips for aiming is pretty much you want to aim since it's a spread. You're not completely accurate, so aiming at the head isn't completely viable. You kind of want to aim at the body, the upper chest. That way, so some of the bullets hit the head and you're getting that headshot damage. Obviously, if they're like really close, the spread would not matter. You can just dump all your bullets into their head. So his next ability is probably like my favorite one, and it's gonna be his roll. And this is by far his most broken ability, maybe besides his ultimate. You get invincibility frames, you get a shield, you're able to reposition, and you're also a bit harder to hit when you're doing all this. And then the biggest thing too is that if you look at my ammo, I'm at 16 bullets, and if you roll, completely reloaded. And that's huge. That honestly, when I found that out, I think that's when I decided to main Star-Lord completely. It means that you're never walking around with just 40 bullets. If you have both your rolls available to you, that means you're walking around with 120 bullets at a given time. If you're in a 1v1, even if you have to reload, you're able to just output an insane amount of damage very quickly, and you pretty much you never have to stop to reload. And then this is also your main way of dodging enemy cooldowns and stuff. You wanna dodge anything that's super important, like a Phoenix stun, Hella stun, Magneto ultimate, Strange ultimate. You could even roll inside and outside of the invisible middle, and if you're rolling while you're going through it, you don't get the slow effect. It's a very important move to get the hang of. And this is pretty much the reason why you can never kill like a good Star-Lord, because even when they're crossing like a gap and let's say they're 1 HP, you can just always roll through it and be invincible the entire time he's peeking. All right, next is going to be his Blaster Barrage. It's just his E. I think people kind of overrate this move. Like it's a very good move, but people think it's like so OP, and I think it's because they constantly like lose to it when they try to like 1v1 him. And it's like it's good because I'll show you the damage right now. It does do most of the target's health, but did you see how slow it was? If they're getting healed at all throughout the point of that, you're never gonna kill them with this move at all. This move is primarily good when you're like in a 1v1 with a target and like you get them to like 1 HP or very low. They're like, let's say they're like an awkward angle or something, you can just use it to finish them off. The other main way to use it is when you're on top of the enemy team. Let's say there's like 3 or 4 targets right here. You want to like fly above them and then hit your E on all of them. And what that's gonna do is just massively fill your ult meter, which is so important on this character. Like you want to be getting your ultimate. In some cases, you want to be getting your ultimate as often as possible. So looking for those angles where you're hitting E on like multiple targets like that, very, very, very important. Very important. Okay, and then we have his fuel. We'll talk about his fuel right now. This is his main mode of transportation. You've been seeing me use it throughout this entire video. And pretty much you should never be walking on this character because his fuel refills pretty quickly. And you never really have to use a lot to get around to get to any specific spot, which is kind of crazy. So like even this ledge right here, a lot of characters have to like double jump, have to use like a lot of cooldowns and stuff. Star-Lord can just double tap shift really quickly and he's like barely using any fuel. So let me show you what it looks like. So that's using fuel, and then this is just double tapping shift. Like you see the difference? You can save a lot more. You really want to like min-max whenever you're using this fuel, whenever you're just going around the map, because you never know where you're gonna need a lot of it just to get out safely. So learning to min-max while you're out and about is, I think it's gonna come naturally to you as long as you put your mind to it. Shouldn't be too hard. And then another thing to know, when you're in your E, your blast barrage, you can actually use your fuel as well. So see, I just press shift and I'm like moving around a little bit faster. This allows you to get above them and do the E combo. So you're above them and I'm just double tapping shift to go up and down right above them. Because when you're in your E, you are very, very hard to hit because your hitbox is just shifting like insanely. And then you just couple that with the fuel usage above them. Now they have to look up and hit a hard target. If they have like hit scan characters or projectile characters, they're gonna have a tough time hitting you. You're not invincible. You can still die. You're very, very vulnerable, especially if you have 6 people looking at you. Chances are you will die. But if they're distracted by like, let's say something's going on, or if you guys have a Luna all going off, the chances of you dying in that scenario is very, very low. Okay, and then the other piece of tech that you can use with your fuel is that you see right now when you roll, you see how Star-Lord kind of goes into an arc. Kind of predictable, and in some cases it can actually kind of mess you up. There's some rooms in this game that have doors, shorter ceilings than this. If you see, when I roll, I go up. And now for this type of door, it doesn't really matter, but let's say it was shorter, I would bonk my head and it'd be a little bit harder to like get out of the room. But if you use your fuel right before you roll, you can actually keep the height that you're at currently. So this is the normal one. I go up, but if I use my fuel, you see, I don't really ever go up, and that's very useful to know. And it's like a little movement tech. It's very, very useful to know. I'm gonna talk about his ultimate. And he probably has, I don't know if he still has one of the best DPS ultimates in the game. It's definitely very strong. I'm not gonna say it's not strong. There's just a lot of counterplay to it, and the game's been out long enough where a lot of people pretty much know how to deal with Star-Lord ultimate. It's one of those ultimates that everyone looks out for, and it might be just because of the tilt factor of just the ult in general. So like what it is basically you're just auto aiming people from across the map. And it has the ability, if they have genuinely no answer, it has the ability to completely team wipe and win a fight. The best uses I find, especially the higher you climb, is just using it to get like at least a single pick, like at least a single kill, or bait out an enemy support ult right before your supports have to ult in order to get the ult advantage in the fight. Those are probably the 2 main ways of using it. In the lower ranks, you'll probably team wipe way more. The higher you climb, the more people are looking out for it. So it's going to be harder. So you're going to have to be a little bit more creative. So you're going to have to like look at people's positioning and let's say like a Magneto saving his ult for you. But you see like an enemy Spider-Man way off to the side. You can choose to solo ult him if that's really going to give you guys the advantage in that upcoming fight. Also, a good thing to keep in mind too is you're really not invincible in this ult. There's very, very good counterplay to it in this game, and I'll kind of go over that a bit later when I go over Star-Lord's counters and weaknesses. But you're still a 250 HP target, 275 when you're using a roll. When you're in your ult, if you notice, you reload insanely quicker. So you'll never really want to be rolling because you have to go through the whole animation. And when you're ulting, you pretty much only want to use your roll to reposition. So like if a target's like around the corner and it'd be a little too long to get around to see them, that's when you would use your 2 rolls to get that better angle on them. I'm gonna start with like the very basic tips to get better at Star-Lord. For one, get better aim. That's like the number 1 thing. It's like by far like probably the most important thing on this character. See, like, characters like Hela, Punisher, Phoenix, they don't have to try that much. They don't have to be as good at the game to output twice the damage as you do. Like they're already doing that as a baseline. So if you're a Star-Lord player, but you're missing the majority of your shots, not only are you not getting as much value already as them, you're gonna just put your team at a disadvantage. You're basically just not gonna be like that useful to your team. The higher you go, I'd say like the moment you hit diamond, you're gonna hit a wall if like your aim is just not that well. Because of course he has these like his auto aim moves, like his E and his ultimate, but in order to try to carry a game, you're gonna need to output like a lot more pressure than that. And things to get better with the aim, obviously aim labs, Kovacs, and when you're using these things, even do match is pretty good. Anything to just like get you shooting more and tracking. You wanna be practicing with intention, I'd say. Like maybe like record yourself aiming and discover why you're not doing as much. For me, honestly, it was my PC setup. I had to upgrade my PC and get more frames, and my accuracy went up like instantaneously. But that was also after years of practicing my aim and stuff like that. It doesn't take years. It can literally take just weeks or like a month or two of just like practicing with just with good intentions and just like looking at your aim and seeing why you're struggling and where you're struggling, and then just do scenarios that supplement that. Best thing to note about this character is that you should not be dying too much. Because I just went over his kit, and as you can see, he has a lot of movement to him, a lot of movement and a lot of bullshit, and he even has invincibility and a bit of shield. The shield's not too great, but he has a bit of shield. So because of this, on any given game, you should probably be dying the least on your team, because even when your team fully dies on point, unless it's necessary to die on point to stall, Star-Lord can pretty much get out for free. Like, and characters can't really chase him. Even if they have like a Spider-Man or Iron Fist, Star-Lord has the tools to always just be able to get out. Because of his mobility as well, he's able to take like pretty crazy angles, and he can pretty much take ridiculous fights that like a lot of other characters just really can't, unless you're like a Spider-Man or something, or like an insane like dive hero with mobility and stuff. So like I said, you're hard to hit. It's not just from the enemy's perspective, it's also from your own healer's perspective. Like you got to keep in mind that you're very fast and you're very small, so you kind of gotta like be a little bit kinder to your healers. It is kind of on you as the Star-Lord player to make it a bit easier for them. It's either by lining up closer to your tanks, it's an easier shot, they don't have to look so far away to heal you, or whenever you do need heals, just like get to a safe spot and kind of just like be still, and like don't be jumping around, don't be flying around, flipping, taking heals. Don't be that kind of DPS player. It is hard for them. And to be honest, you don't have to rely on your healers on this character. He's pretty good at just playing health packs. So learning where all the health packs are is actually like vital for this character. It's kind of like Spider-Man. Now I'm gonna get on to the meat of the video. All right, I'm gonna talk about his playstyles and his modes, or his modes of play, I'd like to say. So the first playstyle for Star is just an Ult Farming playstyle. It's basically you're just shooting your gun indiscriminately at any target. It doesn't matter if it's tanks, it doesn't matter if it's a DPS. You're just shooting your gun always and just trying to build your ult as quickly as possible. The name of the game is just ulting as frequently as possible. And you're not really thinking, you're not putting much effort into like when you're ulting, why you're ulting. You're just spamming your gun. You're looking for any opportunity to hit an E on top of the enemy team. You're just pressing Q the second you get it. And you're just basically just trying to bait out all the cooldowns, all the defensive cooldowns from the enemy team, just so that your team can have the advantage in the ult fight. Honestly, this playstyle, I was kind of trying to adopt it towards the end of the last season, and it was working. It was kind of working. It kind of wasn't working. This season, I feel like it works insanely well, just because of the buffs to characters like Magneto and the introduction of Gambit, right? Because one of the biggest ways Star-Lord can gain a shit ton of ultimate is by pressing E on top of like 5 people. I've seen upwards to like 30% you can gain in 1 E. So like in an ideal scenario, you can have like a mag just bubble you, go above the enemy team, and you're just pressing E, and it only takes around like 3 or 4 times to do that, and you're pretty much outpacing the enemy supports when you're doing this. The next playstyle is going to be like a flank diving kind of character. You're pretty much just going to play off angles, and you're pretty much going to look for any way to get like around the enemy team. You're going to be shooting primarily DPS and supports, and looking to take it fights and just get a pick and create an opening for your team. I prefer, this is like my favorite style to play because it kind of gives you like the most agency, especially when you're playing well doing this. Because if you get a pick on a support, your team kind of can just snowball and win the fight. It also leads to like a little bit more fun engagements, right? If you're 1v1ing somebody in an off angle and you just solo kill them, it's just more fun overall. It is probably the hardest playstyle to execute on Star. It does require you to have good aim and it requires you to learn a lot of like one-on-one matchups, and like, so it's risky, but it's very, very fun and it is a viable playstyle. Okay, and then the last mode of play I'd say is being a flank or denier. So any off angles or any flank angles, you'll see like a Psylocke, Hela, Phoenix, or enemy BP. If they're posing a threat and you see that they're a problem, it's most likely gonna have to like fall upon you to meet these DPS players on these angles. Pretty much either kill them or just force them off the angle and like reposition. And so you're not really worried. Same thing with the flank and diver playstyle. You're not really worried about your ult charge and you're not really worried about getting it as quickly as possible. Your main concern is to stuff out the value that the other DPS player is trying to get for his team and basically negate his impact on the game. That's going to be your impact, is keeping your team alive by not letting them die to their DPS. And it's going to require to be a little bit more selective on when you're ulting because it matters a lot more because you're not going to get it as often. But yeah, this is very effective with Star because he's a lot of people don't think this, but he's pretty good at peeling because like I said, you're walking around with like 120 bullets at any given point. If you're landing your shot, that's a shit ton of damage that any diver is gonna have to deal with when they're trying to go for your supports. Star-Lord's a very, very good peeler. So the reason I don't call these things like play styles because it's not, you're not rigid when you're playing this game. Like you have to be flexible. I call it modes because you're shifting in and out of these things throughout the course of a match. Because let's say a Psylocke goes on an off angle and you're like, okay, I'm gonna play to deny her, and you do that, and then she realizes, oh, I can't do what I want to do. I'm not gonna flank anymore. I'm not gonna off angle anymore. Well, now you don't have to do that anymore. Now you can maybe switch to an ult farming like playstyle where you like, since she's not really a threat anymore. So you're just going in and out based on the circumstance of the match, and it's gonna depend on your team comp and like the enemy team comp. If you have like an Emma or like a Mr. Fantastic, then you're probably not gonna need to peel as much on Star-Lord. Even though you can and you're very effective at it, you probably don't have to. You could probably like look to flank more or look to just play around the front line a little bit more, and not really worry about your back line because they're probably gonna be well protected with your team comp. But if they're running something like quadruple dive, like a Captain America, Venom, Star-Lord, Daredevil, then you're probably gonna have to be a much more like peel-centric Star-Lord that match. So it pretty much depends on the scenario of the game. Knowing when to switch between the three is the skill gap with this character, in my opinion. All right, so next I'm gonna talk about some synergies with Star-Lord. First and foremost, the best synergy by far in the game right now because of the new season, Magneto. Magneto, like being able to bubble himself and be able to bubble Star-Lord, their like unofficial team up, you could kind of say, was already kind of strong. But now Star-Lords have zero fear on like pressing E in like on top of the enemy team. Zero fear because the Magneto who is just gonna press bubble on him every single time. It's still pretty early, so Magnetos are probably like still adjusting to this. It's just so insane because there's probably going to be a lot of scenarios where some Star-Lords are going to get ultimate way before the supports and just completely roll team fights and stuff. And I don't know how fair it is. I'm gonna be honest, but it's in the game and I'm gonna enjoy it while it's here. Magneto is also really good with Star, especially when there's an enemy Star. And what I mean by that is that one way to counter a Star-Lord ultimate is by Star-Lord ulting yourself. But as you probably know, Magneto ult can kind of counter Star-Lord ult. So what you do is you have your own Magneto ult their Star-Lord ult, and then you pop your Q to kill him, because his bullets are hitting nothing and yours is just going into him. You are trading 2 ults for 1. I think it's worth it if your team has no other option. Like let's say you guys have no support ults to live. Pretty worth it, just so that your team doesn't die. Okay, next synergy is Luna. I don't know, I'm hesitant to call this a synergy because she works well with any DPS in the game because you just give them Snowflake and they're sometimes unkillable. I think that's very much the case with Star-Lord. Like I think if Star-Lord has Snowflake, he almost can like never die. And then if you have like an Ultron with the drone and stuff, it's like same thing. Like this character is like a pest and he can be a menace. Menace. Okay, Mantis is another good synergy because the damage boost from her leaves can just help you charge your ultimate a lot faster. Rocket team up is so good because there's no range on it, and it's just like it's just an instant teleport. You have to be a bit preemptive with it, so you're gonna have to predict when you're gonna be in a bad spot, like a couple seconds before you're actually in that spot. You can be literally anywhere in the map, anywhere, and you just press it and you're back. This character could already take like pretty aggressive angles and pretty ridiculous fights, but that TP kind of allows him to like go even crazier, like because he has zero fear of like getting teamed up on. Honestly, if he takes like a really far angle, like way behind the enemy line, just to like distract them, and he draws like 2 or 3 of them on him, normally he would just die. Now you can just teleport out, and like it's actually a win for your team because you're distracting 3 people in that time. Rocket's damage boosted ult also helps Starlord because you're pretty much unkillable with the shields, and then you have 40% damage on top of that. So ulting, like comboing your ult with Rocket is very strong, and sometimes you can kill through some support ults. Star-Lord also works well with any diver. Because you could always time your flanks in line with their diver, and we already know menaces like BP in this game exist. So if a BP gets a target to 1, all you have to do is sit on the sideline, just like you don't have to commit to anything either, and just pepper some shots in and like basically confirm a kill. And honestly, the new character Gambit is also, I wish I could show it, but he's very strong. He feels very strong with Star-Lord because his ultimate gives you a jump boost and a speed boost. And this character, we already seen, he's pretty fast. He can get around pretty quickly. So you give him that speed boost, and Star-Lord is just flying around like insane. Like you can never hit him. It's like insane. And then on top of that, Gambit also gives you a 30% like ult increase. So we already stressed how important it is to get your ultimate. We also talked about like ways in which you can get it insanely quickly. So now you combine that with a move that also increases your ult charge rate. It all adds up, and I think it just makes that combo like insane. And like you could be Star-Lord ulting, but like imagine this, but you're like movement boosted on top of that, and then at any point you can dodge like any moves and stuff like that. So, and everybody's playing him. Everybody's playing Gambit right now, so he's in every game. So I think that's also why I think it's a really good time to pick up this character, because he has like so many synergies that are like currently meta right now. So it's like it really helps him out. He's honestly really good against the majority of team comp. He doesn't have like major weaknesses. He has things he struggles with for sure. Star-Lord is good at peeling. I got 1, maybe 2 divers, but if they're running 3 or 4, it's gonna be a lot more difficult for him. Also, characters like Hella no More, like that team up, I think it's the most unplayable strategy to go up against as Star-Lord, because Hella alone already counters this guy. No special move, no abilities, just her kit, just her primary attack just counters and limits your playstyle in a way. And then them with the team up, they just have too many utilities. They have too many tools that like shut down and really limit what Star-Lord can do. And like, in my opinion, you should never play that matchup. Either always ban Hella or just don't pick Star-Lord into that. Next is like another hard matchup is Bucky. I don't want to go too far in depth because I am making matchup guides, so I'm just gonna quickly go through these. So characters like Bucky, Iron Fist, Daredevil, Widow, and Hawkeye, Star-Lord kind of struggles against. Widow and Hawkeye just because of the long range. It changes the way you're supposed to play the game, which is very uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially for characters like Star-Lord, who like kind of they fall into a rhythm. Widow and Hawkeye are designed to like break your rhythm, right? You're not supposed to peek angles you normally peek, and you're not supposed to play the game like you normally do against these characters, or else they punish you for it. Daredevil and Iron Fist, just because their 1v1 potential is insane. Like it's very hard to ever beat them in a 1v1. Borderline impossible if they know what they're doing. They're not characters I would swap off the character for, but they're characters where you have to be very careful. Okay, going on to like actual counters. These are mostly going to be for when you're ulting. Support ults, of course, will counter Star-Lord ult, but then you have things like Magneto ult, which eat up all your bullets. Good to know that your ult does outlast the Magneto ult. One thing I do is probably not the best, and it's probably lost me some fights, is if a Magneto's ulting, I just start shooting regardless, and like there are a lot of cases where I break his ultimate, and then I'm able to keep shooting afterwards, or you can just wait it out and then just start shooting after it. Strange ult, it's not really a direct counter to Star-Lord ult, but what a lot of Strange players have started to do is that when you're ulting as Star-Lord, they'll fly up to you and Eye of Agamotto you. It's honestly not good for them to do that, but if they're paying attention to your own cooldowns, it actually is very very, very strong. Because if you run out of rolls and you have no rolls available, then you have no answer to when they eye you. But if you do have a roll, you'll always be able to dodge it and they'll waste their strange ult. It's basically like a mind game, and it's kind of a lesson in cooldown management and something to really look out for when you're Starlord ulting. Next thing is Emma ult, because when you're ulting, you're obviously peeking. So if Emma's ulting you, you're like 100% gonna get seduced and like start walking towards her. It's very important to either get pocketed by your support or like mag bubbled and stuff, because your ult does last longer than that. So as soon as you get mind controlled, you will break free of it and you'll still be in your ult. But in the time that you're mind controlled, you're very vulnerable to getting like bursted down. But overall, what I tend to do, like the way you want to ult on this character, is by waiting for the enemy support ult. Because the way this game is designed is that if your team support ults and the enemy team doesn't, 9 times out of 10 your team is just going to win that fight, because they're kind of invincible throughout that time period. So when supports ult, they usually just trade ults, so you never really have to use your ult offensively before that. There are some scenarios where you can do that. It's very beneficial. Your supports are like 80% ult charge. You can tell your team, hey, I'm gonna bait out their support ult, just play safe, play outside of it until it's gone, and then we go in with our support all afterwards and win. So there's some scenarios where you can do that. But again, it depends case by case, and you'll learn when to do which as you play this character. Okay, so now the last thing I'm gonna talk about is his one trick viability, because I know a lot of people one trick in this game, and I think he's very, very good as a one trick because he works super well against a lot of team comp, and he works super well with a lot of team comps. Yeah, like Starlord's never a bad pick. There are times where he struggles a lot and you have better options available, but you're never just automatically throwing when you're on this character, in my opinion. At the same time though, I don't think this is a character that you have to one trick. What I mean by that is that there are characters in the game like Blade or Spider-Man that require a lot of like knowledge and a lot of like effort to either execute or like learn, and a lot of time. Starlord isn't really that like that. He's very easy to pick up. The kit like is very simple. The skill gap comes with the matchup knowledge and knowing how to play each scenario, and that does come with time, but it doesn't demand you to one trick him like a Daredevil or something, because he's not like execution based. If that makes sense. Like, let's say if you want to main this character, you do need other characters to fall back on when the going gets tough. And so it's something like a Hela or Phoenix, Bucky, or Psylocke. I think those 4 are probably the best. If you want like a melee option, for sure, Iron Fist is probably the best bet. I think Daredevil is a bit too technical, and he's very unforgiving, because when Iron Fist, at least when you block on Iron Fist, you gain all that HP back. With Daredevil, you kind of don't. You got to be a little bit more on point with your execution. Pretty much any character that doesn't require that much playtime to learn is what I'm trying to say, and like, you just pick up and play. But yeah, I think Starlord is very, very strong this season. I think he's maybe he's low-key slept on. I don't think he's S tier like he used to be, but I think he's very, very strong. He's very, very useful. And if you pick up and learn him, I think you'll see what I mean. Okay. So that's pretty much the guide for season 5. I think he's very, very strong. And if you play him, you'll see what I mean. This was just more of like a general overview of like how you should play him and stuff like that. I do intend on making a Starlord guide for each map, so just be on the lookout for that. And that will probably include more gameplay and more examples of the things I talked about in this video. I just didn't want to make this like an hour long, showcasing like every type of playstyle and every type of way you can play, because honestly there's like a million ways to really play this character, even throughout the course of like one match, so to really go over in one video. Yeah, and I hope this helped you guys. See ya.